What's up, guys? We are back. Fitness Profit Multiplier, Anthony and Jimmy. Today, we're going to be discussing surviving the ups and the downs of your fitness business. We're going to be talking all about revenue today. There's a lot of ups and downs in your fitness business. We can talk about feelings and emotional stuff, but that's not what we're talking about today. Today, we are talking about revenue. And like, for example, we're recording this in February. So February is kind of like a really short month. And revenue is going to be down in February because there's less time in here. But then March is a longer month, so you're going to get more months of revenue. So you have to understand how this works, and we're going to explain it to you today.
Right. So what's really important is having some sort of a tracking software that allows you to look at your revenue on different timescales, right? So I don't know if MindBody uses this. We use Zen Planner. Shout out to Zen Planner if you ever want to sponsor an episode. But we're not sponsored by anybody, so but maybe soon. So Zen Planner wants to sponsor us. Shout out to Zen Planner. We love Zen Planner. Customer service is great there. MindBody probably does this too. Those are two big players in the industry. But when we look at our billable tracking, we want to look at year to date. We want to look last year. We want to look monthly. We want to look at all these metrics to see what our revenue looks like and what the seasonality of a personal training business looks like, right? Because you could be freaking out that your revenue dropped in August, let's say, maybe July, right? But then you realize from tracking your freezes and tracking your cancellations and tracking your leads that August maybe is just a slow month in your market, right? And you have to be prepared for what that looks like and know that it's coming. Just like Anthony was saying about February. Every year at the beginning of February, I look at our projections and I freak out for about 20 minutes. And I talk to my staff and I'm like, what are we going to do? We got to get more revenue in here, this and that. And then I go and look at my data and I look at every single year that we've been in business. January is decent. February is not great, right? In comparison to our most recent high of revenue. February drops down a little bit because there's only 28 days, right? So, and if your business is making a lot of money, right? If you're $1 million business, right? That daily revenue amount is pretty high, right? So you're already losing like, what is it, $6,000 for that month period of time because you don't have billables for 2 of the days that you would normally have in other months. So you're already down by that much because of the way that the billing structure is. And we bill everybody every 28 days. So keep that in mind. We don't bill monthly, right? That changes the month-to-month revenue amount more, but allows you to have more bills throughout the year. So that's something that you have to consider when we're talking about this, okay? But there is a revenue roller coaster that you're going to go through, and your emotions are going to be all over the place, and you're going to be like, oh no, my business is failing, this and that, all this other shit's going to happen in your mind, right? But you have to look at the data and go, okay, I know that February is a little bit lower. I know that August is probably a little bit lower because a lot of people are going on vacation. You got a lot of freezes, not a lot of new acquisition in August, but that's going to bolster by October because October is going to be big and March is going to be big and May is going to be big, right? So we have to look at these months in terms of the seasonality of the way that people buy fitness and know ahead of time that that's what you're going to expect throughout the year. And there's a couple of things that we can implement to backfill some of this revenue loss that you're going to experience in these different months that kind of go up and down. Because when you hear some gurus talk, they talk about, oh, well, we want to make sure that our client number from one month to the next is always a factor of increasing in members, right? And that's fine and well and dandy to say that, but that's not always going to be the case every month, right? Some months you're going to maintain from one month to the next. Some months you're going to add 30 members. Some months you're going to add 20, right? And some months you're going to add 0. And that's just the way that the cookie crumbles. And we want to have systemized processes in place that exist all year round so that you are capitalizing on the busy times, holding steady through the slow times, and making sure that at the end of the year, you're generating more revenue, right? The systems that we have put together and the processes that we have put together can get you an additional 100 to 200 grand per year in your business growth year over year, right? That's what we've experienced. 1 to 200K increase in top line revenue for the year over year, right? So it becomes a little bit harder to do as you get bigger and bigger to make these big revenue growth numbers. When you're smaller, it may even be more than that. It may be more like growth of 100 or even 200% revenue, right? When you're a smaller business. So we have to look at these things and know that if you put these processes together and run these plays all year long to generate business, you're going to have slow months, you're going to have busy months. Just because one month you added 40 members does not mean you're going to add 40 members every month. And just because one month you added 0 members net, that doesn't mean that you're going to add 0 members for the rest of the year, right? We have to realize that this is something that goes up and down, and that's the way that business works.
One of the things that I typically do in those down months, like Jimmy, I freak out as well. But then what I usually do is I go back and look at what I did last February, let's just say. So we're using February as the example because we're in February right now as the recording of this. So if we look at that and I compare last February to this February, so oh, look, I did more this month. So technically I grew, right? So you got to kind of look at it like that. I would not focus on, I kind of don't even look at that number anymore. Like I used to really put a lot of emphasis on, oh, I got to make, the monthly amount. But there's times when you're just going to have people, like Jimmy said, some months people just go on hold. Like August people go on hold, your revenue drops. And then there's other months where it goes up for not for no reason, but sometimes it's like it's supposed to be a down month and it's a good month. And it's just sometimes the way the payments fall, when people pay, like you have to look at that too. Like that plays a big part in it. Like depends. Like some days we have big drops into our bank account, like everybody's payment clears on the same day. And then other days we have like no money that gets processed into our bank account. So it's not that you didn't make any money that day. It's just that when the money processes and you get it, it could be that factors into all that stuff too. So you can't go crazy about that. Like I said, the thing that I always look at every month, and I think that has kept me growing in the direction that we want to grow in, is how many holds do I have? How many people left? How many new signups did I have? As long as I beat the hold number and the cancel number, I am good because that tells me that I'm growing. And the funny thing is I might not see the fruit of that in that month, but I will always see it the following month. Again, it could just because the way the deposits fall. So like, for example, there's 28 days in February. If we sign somebody up on the 28th of February, that revenue technically not going to drop into your bank account until March. So you can't count that toward the month of February. It doesn't mean you didn't do a good job, but it's just the way the revenue flows. So don't focus on that. You're always going to have ups and downs in your business. And guys, this is how you can tell that we're actually gym owners with you, because we go through the same psychological things and roller coasters that you go through. Because these are the things when you get to certain levels, you start looking at and you're like, shit, because you're working so hard to try to grow your business. But you have to understand that it's just ebbs and flows, and you got to stay steady on the journey there. Jimmy, anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, there's one more thing that I wanted to touch on. So when we have these roller coaster months where months aren't going as well, right? There are things that you can implement process-wise to run strategically during these months that are a little bit lower revenue, right? So a couple things that you can run to increase the revenue numbers for those months to make your total year feel better and make things run a little bit more smoothly. The number one thing that you can do is run an internal challenge that's paid, right? So you run an internal challenge that's paid. Because you have a slower month, your gym is not going to be as busy. So you can increase and ascend people into other products or other services during that time and strategically map that out, right? So we run a fat loss challenge in February. We run a fat loss challenge in February because we know that we're not going to get those 2 or 3 days of revenue that we typically would see in that month's time. And typically our challenges are gonna gross us somewhere in the $2,000 to $4,000 range when we run a challenge, right? Because we're charging people to enter the challenge. People get accelerated service, they get more frequency, they get some additional nutrition accountability, and we can bolster some of the revenue loss by putting a challenge in there, right? One of the things that we don't do very often that you could do if you wanted to, if you're really worried about revenue from month to month, and you're somebody that like, oh, well, I got to pay my staff and this and that, and you're kind of running on thin margins at this point in your business, is you can run a paid in full promo during that time as well, right? To get some revenue. Now, paid in fulls, we don't like a ton because you're robbing future you, but it does ensure that you're getting those payments from that member, because some members will default in the future, right? So those are 2 strategies that you can use during that time. Or you can run free month promos for referrals or different referral campaigns, because then the following month will be even bigger, right? Because you have that capacity in your gym because of the freezes and the cancellations and this and that. So you do that in February, you can do that in August. We typically find that February, August are slow. And then in terms of revenue, not necessarily slow in terms of acquisition, but the revenue is a little bit lower. And then we find that May and October are busy, right? That's what we find in the fitness space, in the personal training space. We don't typically find that January is busy. And we've talked about this on other podcasts. But when we look at those months, we can go, okay, well, May kind of offsets February and October offsets August, typically. But if you want to get off this revenue roller coaster, you want to have more consistent revenue, you can run internal promos to get more revenue out of your clients, or run free promos to get more clients the following month. So the following month offsets the previous month that much more.
Yeah, I mean, perfectly, and well said, man. Well said. There's a lot of things you could do. And guys, if you're not into like doing those challenges and stuff, there's a lot of things you could do. You could run a supplement sale. If you guys sell private label supplements like we recommend, that's something that we're looking to help you guys with in the future. But, running a sale on the supplements, running a sale on apparel, running a sale on, this, or an upgrade for nutrition, or an upgrade to your programming. There's a lot of internal things you can do to kind of move things along there. But this is why it's so important to have a marketing calendar. So this way you could kind of plan out, okay, I know August is a shit month. So what can I do in August to drive that revenue? And August, I think, is a great time to look internally. We should probably do a whole episode on what to do in August. It's just something for the book. So Jimmy, you might want to add that one to your list. But I think August is a special month. But again, if you plan this stuff out and okay, February and August, my revenue is typically down. What can I do to counteract that? And if you guys want a really, really good play that you can use in February, just click that link below. There's a link to the free training in there where you can get 10 clients in 7 days for 0 ad spend. So I recommend picking that up. And you could join us on Facebook and find out more and continue this conversation there. So until next time, Anthony and Jimmy, Fitness Profit Multiplier, we are out.